The morning light crept softly through the curtains. I opened my eyes slowly, still wrapped in the warmth of the night. We had shared a night that wasn't wild or rushed, but full of care and quiet emotions. When I woke, he was already awake, his head resting on one hand, watching me like I was the most precious thing he had ever seen. His eyes were calm but full of something deep admiration and warmth. As I turned, a few strands of my hair fell across my face. He reached out without a word, brushing them away with his fingers. His touch was light, but it made my heart skip. He smiled faintly, and before I could say anything, he leaned forward and kissed my forehead slow and gentle. "How was your night?" he whispered softly, his voice still husky with sleep. I smiled, my cheeks warm. "Beautiful," I said quietly. "You?" He nodded, his lips curving into a small smile. "The best of my life," he said, and the way he looked at me made my heart flutter. He got up, stretching a little, and then turned back to me. "Don't move," he said with a playful smile. "I'll make us coffee." I laughed a little, watching him head toward the small kitchen. "You sure you know how?" He glanced over his shoulder, pretending to look offended. "I'm a married man now. I'll learn fast." I couldn't help but laugh again. The sound of him moving around, the clinking of cups, the soft hum of the coffee machine, and the quiet tune he started humming filled the room with a kind of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. When he returned, he was carrying a small tray to mugs of coffee and toast that was slightly burnt on the edges. He set it down carefully on the table. "Breakfast is served," he said proudly. I smiled and took a sip of the coffee. "It's good," I said honestly. He sat across from me. "You're just being nice." I shook my head, teasing him. "No, really. The toast is crispy. Extra crispy," he corrected, nodding seriously. That made me laugh, and he looked so proud of himself for making me smile that my heart softened even more. We sat together, talking softly about everything and nothing. The sunlight wrapped around us like a warm blanket, and time seemed to move slower. After a while, he leaned back in his chair and said suddenly, "I want 5 babies." I almost choked on my coffee. "5? Are you crazy?" He grinned. "Maybe, but if they're like you, I'll never get tired." I laughed, shaking my head. "You'll change your mind after one." He leaned forward slightly. "No, I won't. I mean it. I want a noisy house, laughter everywhere. And you." The room went quiet for a moment. The way he said it simple, honest, made something inside me ache softly. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled, my eyes stinging a little with emotion. He noticed, of course. "Hey," he said softly. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Because you're making it hard not to fall for you again," I whispered before I could stop myself. He smiled, almost shyly this time. "Then don't stop." For a moment, we just stared at each other, the kind of silence that feels like a conversation. Then he stood up and walked toward the sofa, motioning me to come over. I followed him slowly, my heart beating faster for reasons I couldn't explain. When I sat down, he turned slightly toward me, one arm resting on the back of the sofa. For a second, I felt nervous. He noticed and smiled softly. "You don't have to be scared," he said gently. "I'm not," I whispered, "just too new to this." He nodded. "Me too," he said, his tone honest and kind. Then, slowly, he leaned a little closer. My heart fluttered wildly, but I didn't move. His eyes held mine the entire time, steady, patient. His hand reached up, brushing my hair again, tucking it behind my ear. "You know," he said quietly, "I never thought I'd be this lucky." "Lucky?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "To wake up next to you, to hear you laugh in the morning, to make bad coffee and still have you smile." I looked away, blushing. but he lifted my chin gently. "Hey," he said, "look at me." When I did, he smiled again, the kind of smile that said more than words ever could. Then, slowly, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't rushed or wild. It was soft, a kiss that spoke of care, of respect, of love that was just beginning but already felt real. His hand rested lightly on my cheek, his thumb brushing against my skin. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. There was only us, the quiet room, the morning light, and the sound of our hearts beating together. When he finally pulled back, he smiled, resting his forehead against mine. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, smiling through the warmth that filled my chest. "More than okay." He laughed quietly. "Good, because I was nervous too." "You nervous?" I teased. "Of course," he said, pretending to look offended. "You think I do this every day?" We both laughed, and the sound filled the space between us with something tender and new. He stood up, ran a hand through his hair, and said playfully, "All right, Mrs. Carter. Now that I've mastered burnt toast, what do we do next?" I smiled. "Maybe don't burn lunch?" He laughed. "No promises." We stayed like that for a while, talking, laughing, sharing glances that said more than we dared to say aloud. It wasn't about perfection. It was about the small things, the warmth, the jokes, the gentle closeness that made everything else fade away. And as I looked at him, I realized something. Love wasn't just about one night or one promise. It was about mornings like this, quiet, real, full of laughter, warmth, and the unspoken words that make a home out of someone's heart.